Hi, John. It's so nice to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
Doing really good. Thanks for having me. Glad to be a
Beautiful.
part of it.
Yeah, like I mentioned before we came in, I said thank you for honoring the invite. It means a whole lot. Okay, John, I am quite excited to have you on the show for a couple of reasons. And firstly, that is my interest in knowledge seeking, because I believe in order to transition from a chaotic situation to that of a beautiful one, it takes the application of knowledge, quality information. And you see, John, ever since I discovered that light in the Hebrew also means knowledge and darkness means ignorance, I've been so keen to knowledge seeking because I do not want to remain in the dark. So that's going to make our conversation here today very, very important to me. Okay, the second reason why I'm excited to have John on the show is for the sake of the audience now. I believe there are some things that John knows that some of my audience needs to hear you say these stuff, directly from your mouth in order for them to experience transformation and even get unstuck. I firmly believe that. And lastly, that is me again. I am convinced that I'm definitely going to learn one or two things from your story, your insights, and your experiences. So for that reason, John, let's get started with your introduction. Talk to us about your journey, how you got here. Then afterwards, I've gotten some beautiful questions for you. Okay, John,
Okay,
over to you.
great. Thank you so much. Thanks again for having me. My name is John Taylor McEntire, and I am the founder and chief empowerment officer of Mutual Prosperity. And Mutual Prosperity is basically a culmination of my experience working around the world and recognizing that everybody has a purpose here on earth, and that it's a God-given purpose. And essentially, uh, everybody should try to find out what that purpose is. And once they found that purpose, then they go forward, trying to capitalize on that and making it the most important thing in their lives. Now, the one thing is that most people don't recognize um, what their purpose is, and I think that's a fault of the schooling systems, the education, and maybe leadership in a way. But let me get back to my story. I am a firm believer um, in having guidance from God, and that's in the form of intuition. And at age 9, I was listening to my mother talk with her friend. They were the friend was actually in a musical, theatrical musical, and she had come to our house for dinner, and we had seen her in a play the night before in a performance, and the performance captivated my attention, but her talk with my mother actually captivated my heart more. And that was that she mentioned that there was going to be tryouts for a play called The Sound of Music at the Playhouse in town in about a month. And she said to my mom, "You ought to try out." And my mom just flatly said, "Oh, that's silly. I could never do that," and everything. The friend left, and I told my mom, I said, "I'm supposed to try out for that play." And my mom says, "Oh, that's very cute and everything, but you've never sung before, and you don't even like to talk in front of people. So how could you ever do that on stage?" So she just put this out of her mind. She put it out of her mind, but I didn't put it out of mine. And I kept on bringing it up to my mother and my father for the next couple weeks, and then finally, a couple days before, I said, "Well, if you're not going to take me, I'm going to have to take the bus." And the bus would take me to a difficult, a dangerous area of town. And so they took me. When my number was called, I told the accompanist that I was going to sing Edelweiss, and I got up there, and there was a lot of talking in the background, and everything. But then I sang, and the room went silent, and I knew that I had a calling, because after that point, I, I I got the part of Kurt Von Trapp, one of the family members, and that put me on a course for doing 30 productions for the next 10 years, and some television and some recordings. And what was really interesting was not so much that theater was fun and everything, and that being on stage was, fun, but it was actually more the fact that when I was in the theater, I actually learned that the theater was more than just these big names on the marquee, the stars of the performance. It was actually there is a mini cosmos, so a little world, and that community, that city has a director as the mayor, and everybody plays a part, and everybody has their parts are very important for the whole production to actually take place. You can't have a production without the script, without the music, without the stage lights and sound, and the sets and the choreography. And so you have a whole city of people that need to get together. What I learned early on was that in the green room is a place where you go before the production starts, and it's also a place where you wait before your part comes on. And when you meet as a team, it's kind of like a football huddle. You get together and you cheer each other on. But when you're in that green room, if that green room is light and joyous and happy, then you know that performance is going to be an A+ performance. But if there's like petty jealousies, people not getting along and everything, it's going to be a B or lower grade performance. And so just being able to actually work together and synchronize those activities was really important. One other aspect of my background was that I grew up in a house where it was like a hotel almost. I had 5 siblings, 2 cousins that lived with us intermittently. We had 2 Navajo American Indian foster brothers who stayed with us during the school year. And then we had a whole slew of foreign exchange students from Japan and Germany, Uruguay, and then we had some humanitarian refugees who came from Laos. A family of 6 came on Christmas Eve, actually, and because they were from Laos, we were driving home and it was snowing, and we had to stop the car because they'd never seen snow before. But we actually gave up our Christmas to actually help them get settled in the United States because they left during the civil war that was going on in Laos at the time. So I was inundated with a whole bunch of culture, and this culture became very, very key in regards to my understanding that everybody is important. Everybody carries a really big piece of the puzzle. And so we have this puzzle of life, and everybody plays a part in that. And somehow we need to make sure that everybody's enabled to play their part, and that we allow them to do what they're supposed to do, and we get them to actually do that. And that's where education and leadership actually needs to take a little bit more of a proactive stance in helping people become themselves. So one other thing is that by the time I was 22, I had already traveled to all 50 U.S. states and 19 countries. And so this whole idea of the world was like swimming around me. And I believe that these opportunities came to me not because I was special or anything, but because I was supposed to do something with them later on. And that's what I'm doing right now. And so it's very important that we recognize that what we grew up with, what aspects that we grew up with, those challenges we have, the blessings that we have, the things that we don't really understand, at some point in our lives, we're going to actually be able to pull that all together and understand more what our mission, our place is in the world, and where we go. So anyway, that's a little bit of my background. There's more than that, but I just thought that I'll end right there and see if you have any questions.
Yeah, that's actually a very inspiring and interesting story of yours, and I find people like you very, very smart and wise because you mentioned something very important. And I think that's actually the reason why we've got so much chaos in this world, because there are a lot of people without sense of purpose. You know, John, this is how I view it. I view us all as a product of which God is a manufacturer, and He created us all for a particular product and purpose rather. Take for instance, the device we are communicating with now. This is part of the reason why the manufacturer created them, in order for people to be able to communicate across the globe without issues and all of that. Now, if I take my device now and I, start to use it to do something else that it wasn't built for, definitely there will be chaos, you know. So I feel because many folks aren't functioning in the purpose for which they were born, that's the reason why we've got so much chaos in the world. Because when you abuse a product, it definitely will malfunction. So I got your point. That's a very interesting one. So we have just few questions left. All right. Are you ready?
Yes, please.
Okay, so can you talk to us about your sync method and how can people reinvent themselves with your sync method?
Yeah, so thank you for bringing sync up. Sync is S-Y-N-C, and that means synchronize yourself naturally within your community. So you'll see that everything I talk about is basically in regards to synchronizing with the community. And so um, uh, this is something that I created. It's been in creation for my whole life, but the culmination of this, putting it all together, has been this last couple years. And I became a Canfield um, success principles methodology trainer. I don't know if the audience knows Jack Canfield. He's the person with Chicken Soup for the Soul series, and also his latest series is the Success Principles. Well, Jack is a mentor of mine, and I became a trainer for his principles. But I use that inside the yourself part. That's the personalized aspect of sync, and that's a big component of that. On the synchronized side, the synchronize is basically as I lived in the Orient, especially in Japan, I was very attuned to the fact that the Japanese, although Tokyo is one of the largest cities in the world, that these people who live in what people call rabbit hutches because they're so small and they're like on top of each other, that they could actually get along so well, and that working in their companies and everything, there's not a lot of bickering or fighting and everything. And so I got to try to figure out what makes that happen. Well, it's this consensus building that they have, and they have something called nemawashi, which is if you think about the bonsai masters, those are the people who clip the trees, the very beautiful ornamental trees. Well, they do something to the roots, and that's called nemawasu. And ne is root, and mawasu means to kind of dig around the roots. And so you're giving the roots air, but you're also allowing it when you're getting ready to transplant that plant from one pot to another pot or plot. You'll take soil from the new place and bring it to the old, and then it gets it works in so that it's less traumatic when it's transplanted to its new place. And so that nemawasu is laying the groundwork. Another thing is called ringi seido, and this is where middle managers help bring policy into an organization by talking to the people beneath them and around them, and then they bring it up this process and everything through the ranks, and so it goes up to the president, and the president puts their stamp on it, and that means that it's been approved. Now, this way of decision making actually may take a little bit longer than Western or American decision making, but the fact is that you've got everybody on board from the beginning, and so everybody is willing to go forward. So the other parts of synchronize is understanding where your orb of influence is versus others. So if you report to somebody, are you connected or are you really far apart? If you're far apart, you need to figure out some way to get connected. And that goes around for the people that are above, around, and below you. But also, you need to make sure that you get away from the curse of Babel. So the curse of Babel is that the people got different languages and they all of a sudden couldn't talk to each other. Well, we have that in our organizations today. So you have a different language in the C-suite, you have a different language in accounting versus the factory floor and all these other things. And so you need to be able to be on the same page and be reading from the same book and speaking the same language. So you need to work on that. So we've done synchronize yourself. Again, yourself is really how do you make yourself the better person you could be? How can you become a leader? How do you make sure that you take 100% responsibility for your actions and your activities so that you can move forward? Then naturalize is how do you take foreign concepts, things that we don't understand very well, and put them into our lives so that we can actually use those to our best advantage. So intuition is one of those. Although intuition is inside each of us, some people are able to use it better than others. And so we talk through how can you make that work better. We also talk about nunchi, which comes from Korea. And this is how do you read a room? So when you go into a boardroom, when you go into a party, when you go into a classroom, how do you fit in and how can you make yourself fit in a little bit better? Then Sun Tzu was a Chinese general, and he was an author, and he wrote a book called The Art of War. And you may think, well, we're talking about consensus and trying to be synchronized and everything. Why would you be talking about war, John? Well, the fact is that people need to understand that his goal was not to have war. It was not to have any battles, but to actually win the war without a battle. And so he learned how to actually understand people, how to work with his enemies and things like that. Then we come into communitize. And to communitize is basically my time living in the Arab region in the Middle East. I had the opportunity to actually get to know how the Arab population communicates with each other. So you have tribes, and tribes have a lot of good things with them, but they have some negative things. Some negative things kind of like silos. You don't want silos in your organization. So you take those things out. But the other aspect of the Arab culture, which is really unique, is they have the majlis. And I learned a lot from the majlis. Basically, the majlis is a place that it's traditionally a tent that's in somebody's yard, and basically it's a place where the men get together originally, and they would pass down traditions and history to the younger people. They would pass down language. They would teach everybody how to work with each other and try to really get it so that they're working better together and that they're progressing as a society and they're all on the same track. And so communitize is really how do you make it so that you're working closer more closely knit and how do you function so that you can have those things together. So the synchronize, the sync system, the method is that. So how do you use that to reinvent yourself? Well, you figure out how your orb of influence is in relation to others around you. And you make sure that you're speaking a language that they can understand. So if they're in a different wavelength, then you need to talk to them that way. Like when we talk to children, we usually talk in a language that's a little bit more simple for them. If you talk with somebody else, you're respective of how they talk and what they're wanting to talk about and everything, and you don't bring in superfluous type stuff. You respect their needs, and they'll respect yours too, and you build trust. Then the yourself part of again is taking 100% responsibility for the things that you're doing, and as you do that, you're able to make sure that you learn how to ask for things and how to give and how to be a respective person going back and forth. And then you take that naturalized concept is how do you're going into a foreign place. So figure out how you work with them. So there's the phrase, when in Rome, do as the Romans. Well, this is kind of where that comes in. You try to work in those types of situations. So the communitize is basically pulling it all together and trying to make sure that you're synchronized with that community, whether it's inside your organization or if you're a company, it's outside and it's your stakeholders, the people who are buying from you, your vendors, your those all the different people that you have to deal with. So it's both an internal thing for your group, but it's also external for your group and how your group goes out into the world.
Amazing. I mentioned in the beginning, John, I said, I am convinced that I'm definitely going to learn one or two things from you. That has happened already. Wow. And you see, I would have to listen to our conversation over and over again to get this stuff sink into my psyche. Powerful stuff. I love that. So to bring this to an end, John, what would you like to leave the audience with, like a final thought? And to those ones who would like to reach out to you, learn more about what you do, maybe you've said some things that resonated with them and they'll love to learn more. How can that be possible?
Great. Thank you so much. Well, I would like to point out the fact that each one of you is a piece of the puzzle, and each of those people that are around you are a piece of your puzzle. And we need to take care of each other. We need to respect each other, and we need to learn how to communicate with each other. And as we do that, we'll be much better as a population, as a world, and we won't have the divides that we have as we do right now. We need to recognize that each person has a place, and even though they're different from us, it doesn't mean they're good or bad. It means that they're somebody that we need to try to get along with and work with, and the more we do that, the more trust and ability to communicate together we gain. So to actually learn more about my system, my company's name again is Mutual Prosperity. So if you go to mutualprosperity.com, that will get you to learn more about me and my background, and also the S.Y.N.C system and the other ways of that I try to help leaders gain more buy-in from their teams.
Beautiful. So that's going to be the end of the show, John. Thank you for coming and thank you for sharing these powerful words with us. I've learned some amazing stuff from you. I love that. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you for having this venue, and thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it.